Hey artists! Today we will be creating a piece of art using paper cutouts and utilizing positive and negative space. We will be inspired by the paper cutouts of Henri Matisse, a style he called painting with scissors, and create our own compositions. Henri Matisse was a French painter that lived from 1869 to 1954 and is one of the most prominent artists that moved painting into the modern world. During the turn of the century, he began to be recognized for his use of bright, intense color. Towards the end of his life, Matisse underwent a surgery that left him chair and bedbound, so he began painting paper and cutting it out with scissors from his chair or his bed. He hired an assistant, and they together pinned pieces of paper onto the wall to form his paper cutout compositions. These pieces started out very small, but eventually turned into large murals and whole room installations. His paper cutouts not only play with bright colors, but also organic shapes and negative space. Our art lesson today will focus on all three as we create our own paper cutout. Okay, before we get started, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about negative space. The use of negative space is very valuable in art composition and can hold as much, if not more, power than a positive shape. If you draw a shape or a subject, for example, a pair of scissors, and fill it in, we would have a positive shape. If you fill in the space around the subject and leave that subject blank, then what you have left over is a negative space or a negative shape. Think of it like this. If I subtract the color or the hue from the subject, which is my scissors, and leave it blank, then it becomes negative. And if I add color value to that shape, then it becomes positive. For this exercise, we're going to be using some basic collaging materials. We need a couple pieces of colored paper that are going to fit on a larger white piece of paper, a pair of scissors, a glue stick, and I might utilize a pencil a couple times for drawing. I'm going to arrange my 4 pieces of colored paper on my white piece how I kind of want them to fit. I need to make sure that I have room on the top of my white piece of paper for the positive shape to pop out, and that'll make sense in just a second. Now I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to start to draw with my scissors. I'm going to cut into my piece of paper, and I'm going to kind of create, I'm going to start out with this tree shape and cut through and just create one shape that is all nice and kept together. And then I'll have a positive shape and a negative space left over with a leftover piece of my colored paper. I'm going to glue both of those and then glue them onto my piece of paper with the negative space on one side and then the mirror image of the positive shape on the other. Now this is a little tricky. You'll have to make sure that you're flipping. So I am making sure that I'm flipping my tree to create that mirror image on the top. So you can see me flip and stick that positive shape down. So the result is I have a beautiful negative space underneath that positive shape, and they're mirroring each other. Okay, so on this one, I'm actually going to challenge myself a little bit more. We just did 2 trees that are just a single positive shape. Now I'm going to do 4 or 5 positive shapes cut out of one piece of paper. I'm going to do the exact same thing of mirroring my positive shapes. It's just going to take a little bit more work to make sure that I'm putting them all in the right spot. So I would recommend gluing down your negative space piece first And then one at a time, take all those positive shapes and make sure you're putting them in the right spot, making sure that they mirror their negative space below. As you can see, if you start to venture into the world of more positive shapes, that these get a little bit more complicated, but very beautiful. For this last one, I'm going to create a little leaf. I'm going to do this in a couple steps. I'm gluing down the original negative space and then slowly cutting down the leaf and gluing on each piece separately so that it still has that positive and negative shape. Now, the neat thing about these compositions is that you can turn them on their side as well, and they give a totally new feel and can be equally as beautiful. And in this example on the right, I've actually flip-flopped the positive and negative space for each color square. So you can play around with how you lay those colors out on your page and where you have those positive shapes and the negative spaces. Since it is October and we're coming up on Halloween, I'm going to use my paper cutout skills and my knowledge of negative space to create a positive and negative pumpkin. You can tailor this activity towards younger artists by simplifying shapes and having larger and less detailed cutouts.